a story that we touched on earlier this week. I think people saw the video of Brian McGinnis. Brian McGinnis. Do people know the name Brian McGinnis? So Brian McGinnis is, candidate for for Congress, right? For the U.S. Senate, for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. He's running for the U.S. Congress in North Carolina. He is a member of the Green Party. He's not a member of any of the two major parties. He's a former U.S. Marine. And still, he's considered a Marine. I guess you're not a former Marine. You're a Marine, right? And he is opposed to U.S. support for Israel, and he is opposed to bombing Iran. And so earlier this week, he went to Capitol Hill, and he disrupted a congressional proceeding. And we showed the video of what happened at that congressional proceeding. We showed the video on this channel, but a lot has happened since then. So I'm going to give you a follow-up. So this is what he said before he disrupted the congressional proceeding.
Hey guys, I'm here in DC trying to speak out against the Senate and ask them why they're going to send our men and women to harm's way when our elected officials said that there would be no war. Anybody who feels disillusioned and betrayed by our government, you're not alone. Join us in demanding accountability for this betrayal. Free Palestine, free America. Let's go.
Yeah, so that was how he kind of announced himself. And then the video that many people have probably already seen, this is what happened when he got into the congressional committee hearing and disrupted it.
To name that shows your exemptness as leaders. This is wrong. Stop. And nobody wants to fight for Israel.
Just a reminder to all our
Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America. No one wants to fight for Israel. No one wants to fight for Israel.
His hand. Oh, his hand.
Sir. Let go of your hand. Let go of the door. Let go of the door.
The senator broke his hand. A sitting U.S. senator just broke the hand of a Marine.
Sir. Okay.
Control your Senate.
Arm stuck in the door. Okay, sir.
A U.S. senator just broke the hand of a Marine. Hand stuck. A U.S.
Yeah. So, as you can see, it got a little rough in the proceeding. And he was dragged out. In the process of being dragged out, his hand was broken. Also, something odd happened, which was a member of the U.S. Senate got up and was roughing him up along with the police, which was very unprofessional behavior on the part of a U.S. senator. And it's also not standard security procedure. I mean, the first thing I'm sure they tell them in their Secret Service training, their security training, let the cops handle this. Let the Secret Service agents, let the cops handle this. Don't go and rough up a protester or fight somebody yourself if you're an elected official. That's not what you're supposed to do. So looks like this U.S. senator there who helped, just jumped into the scuffle. I mean, it wasn't enough to have 3 or 4 cops on top of him. Right, was very, very unprofessional. But so here's what happened next. Now, usually if somebody gets up and yells in a congressional proceeding, they get arrested. End of story, right? And Brian McGinnis got up and yelled, and they violently removed him. And as you can see, he was injured during that time. And usually they often don't even take you to jail. They just remove you from the building. In this case, they did take him to the hospital and to the jail and to the hospital, but they would not let him speak to his family. They would not let him speak to his lawyer, and they kept moving him from jail to jail. and from hospital to hospital. And his family didn't know where he was, couldn't locate him. His lawyers couldn't locate him and find out where he was. It was very, very frightening. And we had a number of people speaking up and saying, they've disappeared this guy. No one knows where they've taken him, right? If someone's arrested, there's a record of where they keep them. In his case, they specifically vanished him, made him disappear. Completely horrifying. And there was a whole lot of outrage all over social media. People like, where is he? Why can't his family speak to him? Why can't his attorney speak to him? There was a lot of outrage about it. And it looked like they had vanished him, right? They have these laws that are completely unconstitutional on the books. Started with Bush, where they declare you an enemy combatant and they can hold you without charges. All the people in Guantanamo Bay, right? They're not charged with any crime. And they're being held without charges as enemy combatants, right? And this is a completely illegal thing. And then Obama continued this with his extraordinary rendition law, which again, this all violates the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution says you can't hold somebody unless they're charged with a crime, habeas corpus. The Patriot Act was what Bush did. And then, Obama continued it with the extraordinary rendition law allowing for indefinite detentions. And there's a whole lot of this, right? You can go back to during the Second World War. I mean, habeas corpus doesn't exist during war, right? So during the Second World War, you had Japanese internment. After the Second World War, they passed the McCarran Internal Security Act of 1951 that would have allowed the U.S. government to round up a list of 2 million people they considered subversives if a national state of emergency was declared. The McCarran Internal Security Act was a concentration camp law that was passed during the McCarthy period. Eventually, the courts overturned it. So this was pretty frightening that not only was this guy roughed up pretty badly, it looks like they broke his arm. But on top of that, when they took him to jail, they just vanished him. And stuff like this has started to happen, right? For example, in Homan Square in Chicago, I don't know if people remember the case of Homan Square. Homan Square, it's a jail basically in Chicago that was being used as what they called a black site by the U.S. Department or the Chicago Police Department, where before they would take you to jail, they would take you to Homan Square and torture you. You look at the details of the Homan Square scandal, it's pretty horrendous. It's pretty awful what they were doing at Homan Square. And it was supposedly to fight gangs in Chicago or something like that. But before they would take people to jail, they would disappear them to this place called Homan Square, where there'd be no record of them being there. And they actually did it to 3 protesters in 2012. I was in Chicago in 2012 to protest the NATO summit in Chicago. It was back in the Occupy Wall Street days. And I was there, and while I was there, they raided an anarchist house, one of the anarchist squats or houses or whatever, and they took 3 activists to Homan Square, and disappeared them before eventually, taking them to jail. So, people being disappeared is something that the American government has been doing, right, with Guantanamo Bay and all this. So it looked like they had disappeared Brian McGinnis for standing up in the congressional proceeding and opposing this war. However, today, finally, he was released. There was a huge amount of outrage, people wanting to know where Brian McGinnis was, and they finally did release him, which is a huge victory. And thank goodness, if there had not been a huge social media blow up about the incident, we might never have heard from him again. Right. This is getting to be some Augusto Pinochet kind of stuff, right? This is like, what the old, the South Korean government under Park Chung-hee would do, where they just grab people and then maybe in a couple of weeks we'll find their body in the street to find out if they're dead. This is some evil shit, but apparently there was enough outrage on social media. He was released. This is the video of him finally reuniting with his family after having his arm broken and being held and moved from jail to hospital, not being able to see a lawyer, not being able to communicate with anybody. Yeah, so it was very relieving that he finally was released. I will note, so his wife is a Muslim, right? Is an Arab American, right? I believe of Palestinian descent. And one of the most disgusting things is after the clip of him, a U.S. Marine, saying no one wants to fight for Israel, and then getting very badly injured in the halls of Congress. After that went viral, I saw all these pro-Trump people that are supporting the war and supporting Trump sharing the video of him, sharing pictures of him. He's married to a Muslim. Well, so what? So what? I mean, does that make his military service not real? Does that make his political message illegitimate? Does that mean it's okay to break his arm? So what? And that a lot of the support for this war, right? The overwhelming majority of people who voted for Trump voted for him because he said he was going to stop the wars. Tucker Carlson was on the campaign trail with him. Marjorie Taylor Greene campaigned for him. Tulsi Gabbard was on the stage, campaigning for him. The overwhelming majority of people who voted for Trump wanted to stop the wars. But among those who still support these wars and support Trump, hatred for Muslims and the idea that all Muslims are terrorists and all Muslims are extremists is a big part of what they believe, right? That all Muslims are exactly the same and they're all terrorists. And that's why these wars, it's okay, right? That's a big part of it. And the fact that they just had a picture of him and he happens to have a Muslim wife, that's proof that, it's okay for them to terrorize him. I mean, that was the argument. But anyway, he gave this statement after he got out of jail.
Took an oath to defend this country from enemies, foreign and domestic, and we're facing domestic enemies right now. That's right. Our leaders are in cahoots with Israel, and they're leading America into unprovoked wars, and that's not right. And we got to stand up against it. The American citizens have to say no to our government's choices, and we don't want war. So that's why we're speaking up. And free Palestine, and Palestine is our strength. The Palestinians are suffering far worse than any of this. Right. So it gives us unending strength. So here we are.
Free Palestine. Free Palestine.
Yeah. So, we salute Brian McGinnis. This guy is definitely a hero. This is the kind of person that we need now more than ever. He's a former U.S. Marine. He's somebody that you can't question the patriotism of him and say he's un-American or unpatriotic. And he's someone who can speak to the most important constituency in America right now, which is the dissident MAGA community, the people who voted for Trump to stop the wars and are angry with him and continue to oppose these wars, even when Trump betrayed that promise. They're loyal to opposing the wars. They're not loyal to Trump's personality. So I really hope that his campaign is successful in South Carolina. I look up to Brian McGinnis a great deal. I think what he did was tremendous. And, my hat off to Brian McGinnis. And I hope. Now, I understand they're trying to charge him with assault on the Capitol Police, which, I didn't see any assault in that video. I saw them dragging him out. I saw him resisting arrest, perhaps. I don't know the legal definition of that, especially not in a federal territory like Washington, D.C., but I did not see any assault. I didn't see an assault. I saw them assault him, right, and break his hand. And a member of Congress jump up and assault him, a U.S. senator assault him. So if there needs to be more of a legal defense of him, we should certainly get involved in that as the Center for Political Innovation. If they try to lock him up for a long time for getting up and yelling, right? If they, if they try to, go after him viciously with legal charges, right? If they don't just drop the charges or negotiate the charges down to nothing, if there ends up being a legal case against it, we will have to get involved in that, because this is the kind of guy that America needs now more than ever. We look up to Brian McGinnis. We salute you, Brian McGinnis. We wish you the best of luck in everything that you do. And it was very heroic of you to do that. And we hope to see you in the streets protesting this evil